All righty. We're live a few minutes early. Hey, Tanya. I had a problem apparently. Apparently, I screwed something up when I scheduled the live stream today and didn't set it for 8:30 p.m. I don't know what time I set it for, but it's I apparently messed up. So anyway, let's see what happens. I know I'm here a couple of minutes early from our regular
Yeah,
schedule time.
just popped up in Man Cave's page.
Yeah, let's see. Let's give it a couple minutes. I apologize. Like I said, I made a mistake, and let me see if Scott comes in. I would expect him to be here any minute. Ryan, glad you could make it. Like I said, I've had a problem, and I scheduled this live stream incorrectly tonight somehow or another. There's Scott. Hey,
Hey,
Scott.
Scott.
Hey, y'all, how are you?
Just fine. I kicked off a minute or two early here because I made some sort of horrible mistake when I set this live stream up and didn't set the scheduled time correctly. So
No worries.
I'm not sure what's happening there. But anyway, welcome everybody. It's Thursday night once again, and I apologize for the scheduling, Pooh Bar. That's my fault. I apparently just forgot to set the start time on this when I scheduled it this morning. But anyway, we have a special guest with us tonight. We have Scott Bartlow from Bartlow's Barbecue, and we're going to be talking about some of his stuff here in just a couple of minutes. So, anyway, welcome to the Man Cave, Scott, and everybody else. And I'm going to kick off my Thursday night with my Thursday night bourbon like I always do. So,
Oh, man.
if anybody's having a drink with us, let me know what you're having and where you're having it from. Because tonight I'm working. I'm going yet another week on the old benchmark foolproof. I'm really liking this cheap bottle of bourbon. So uh, that one has been a pleasant surprise at what I paid for it. So let's see. We got Ryan, Brewster, Robert, Carl, and Brian's flying home from Cincinnati. He says,
Yep.
Mike, excellent. All right. Well, Scott, how have you been?
Man, I've been good. It's been a busy season
Yeah, it's
on all fronts, personal and business and
right.
regular
It's
job.
been a while since we've had you on here, but
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I'm grateful to be part of this awesome community.
yeah. Tanya, I'm going to bring you back a little bit later. Okay. Oops. Let me
Hit the right
fix
button,
this.
John.
I know. Russ, glad you could make it. Anyway, let me do my stuff here right quick. First of all, I appreciate everybody who has donated a few dollars here and there to the cost of running this show. I'm not going to keep this up here, but for a minute tonight because I want to get moving and talk about Scott stuff instead of here. But I do once again appreciate the donations you guys have made, and I'll run that banner across the bottom of the screen once again a little later in the evening. And but anyway, cheers.
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 So, Scott, tell everybody where you're from, where you're located.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Oklahoma City, and I live in a little town that I actually went to college to at University of Central Oklahoma in Edmond. But OKC is home base. Out of college, I moved to Chicago, lived there for about 8 or 9 years, and before we started having kids, and then moved back home. So Oklahoma all the way, but then had a little stint in Chicago.
Right. Well, that's a pretty big contrast, if you ask me.
Oh,
I,
it was a
I
big culture shock.
yeah, I don't know a lot
Oklahoma
about
boy going
Oklahoma.
to Chicago.
I've only passed through Oklahoma along where Interstate 40
Yeah.
catches through there a little bit, right outside of Oklahoma City. Uh, a couple of times I've been through there on the road, but
Yeah.
I've never really stopped and spent any time out there, but
It's a growing city, man. Like we get all the jokes. I'm sure a lot of the Midwest, southern states do too. Like, do we have electricity out here, and do we ride horses to our jobs? I
yeah,
mean,
you have electricity.
I've heard all the things.
And I thought I lived in bumfuck.
But the Oklahoma City Thunder have put us on the map, and
Yeah,
our downtown life is thriving. Tons of
Right.
amazing hidden gem restaurants,
Yeah.
including barbecue.
Right.
There's some really hidden gems in Oklahoma.
Well, that's awesome. I never would have looked to Oklahoma for barbecue.
It's one of my missions.
The company I used to work for a few jobs back had a plant in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And Fort Smith, the road that this plant was on was called State Line Road. And it was really weird looking because across the street is Oklahoma. But across the street from this plant, there was this road that just went up this hill, and it went uphill for like a half a mile, and you could see nothing beyond the horizon of that hill. Yeah. And I asked my buddy that I was working with in Fort Smith, I said, what's on the other side of that hill? And he says, I don't know. I've never been over there. He had never driven up that road. And he had lived in Fort Smith all his life.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What's over there is beautiful sunsets. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, much. Probably so. Okay. Jeff, have you been hanging well down there in sunny Orlando?
Absolutely.
We've had some weird weather here this week. It's been cold, but today it got up to 65 degrees, and starting tomorrow it's going to get cold again.
Yep.
And we've had a lot of rain this week, so
I'm sorry it was 90 here today.
Oh, no, it wasn't. Oh my gosh.
I don't hate that, but I'm not happy about it. I'm definitely not happy about it.
Neither am I. I'm not happy about 90 either.
Okay. Well, anyway, guys, the reason I wanted to bring Scott on with us tonight is because, first of all, Scott's been in the barbecue scene for quite a while. And first, let me show you, first of all, and Scott, if I've got anything wrong on this social media resume, let me know and I'll correct it. I think I've got all of your social media outlets listed here.
Yeah, you got it. I am on Pinterest, but who does Pinterest?
Right. Yeah. I should have looked for that. Maybe I didn't think to look for that one. I knew you were on all these other platforms because I've seen you on them, but
yeah,
I'm trying to remember.
I try to diversify if I can.
Which of these is your biggest platform?
Instagram is the biggest, and then TikTok is, as far as followers, but the one I focus on the most is YouTube and Instagram are the two that I'm prominent.
Right. All right. Well, the reason I wanted to bring Scott on tonight is because, we talked about starting a monthly rub and sauce review thing, and it made me think about Scott because Scott's one of the few people that I know that has started his own rub and sauce line. And I'm going to pop a picture up here. This is Scott's stuff, and it's I put his website up here if you want to check it out. And also it may be hard to see on there. Scott has offered us a discount if you use the Man Cave Meals 10 code when you check out for 10% off. But Scott's got these sauces. He's got the hickory. This is a Heartland hickory, but it's a cherry barbecue sauce. Then he's got the sweet red dirt rub, the all y'all, which is salt, pepper, garlic.
Yep.
And then the Dust Bowl. And I apologize, Scott. I did not read through the ingredients on all these bottles, but the Dust Bowl kind of is like a salt, pepper, garlic, but it's got the powdered butter and some other stuff along with it that turns that thing into this. It's an amazing AP rub or AP seasoning. We'll talk about it more, but it's it's really a great rub. I've only had one other that had the powdered butter in it, and it's something that got my wheels spinning when I tasted that. I said, "Why didn't I think of this before?" And it's because I'm just not that good at it. So, the one I want to talk about first is the Sweet Red Dirt, because I think that's kind of your flagship, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when I did my first cooks with the the Sweet Red Dirt, I always taste everything on the tip of my finger out of the bottle, and get a good whiff of it, and you could smell the sweetness on it right out of the bottle. And when you put it on your tongue, you get that sweet, you get a salty sweet
Yep.
right away. It's kind of I don't want to say it's typical. It's not like a typical rub, because this one, after it's sat on your tongue for 15 seconds or so, this little red devil peeks his head in and says, he says, "Hey, there's this little bit of back end heat coming in on that I
Yep.
really like. It really caught me off guard, because the first time I tasted it, I said, "Oh, this is going to be another simple paprika and brown sugar based sweet rub," but no, it's a little bit beyond that. Tell us a little bit about that rub, and
Yeah.
what's the inspiration, and what's going on with it.
I loved your I love how you did a play-by-play of your reaction, because that is really the spirit of why it was created. Actually, what's funny, okay, well, let me first off, before I dive in deep into that specific rub, just say all of our seasonings that we created, because of our Oklahoma heritage, we wanted to create a brand that was Oklahoma inspired flavors. So that's where you're going to get the name and also some of the flavors. I'm just on a mission to really put Oklahoma on the map, when it comes to flavor and seasonings. And maybe that's because I'm next to Texas and I've got a little bit, a little rivalry in me. But at the end of the day, that's kind of the spirit of it in all seriousness. So Sweet Red Dirt. If you live in Texas, Oklahoma, or in the Midwest and the South, you're gonna actually see red dirt in our ground. So that's where the name comes from. I wanted to create this as the first rub, more of an all-purpose, but where it really started, and if I was to relabel it, I probably would label it a chicken and pork rub, because I think it really shines on chicken and pork, but it is good on beef. Um, I started creating this, all the seasonings in my kitchen, and my kids and then my neighbors get involved. They're taste testers. It's got to be neighborhood approved and community approved, and testing a while before we go to large production. So it was like a cookout, a neighborhood block party years ago, and I had this, and I cooked chicken, and man, everybody just was really just excited about the chicken, and just, I mean, that was the best chicken I've ever had. And we're just talking chicken wings, chicken thighs, really basic stuff. Anyways, that's kind of where it started, was as I really made it a chicken pork seasoning, but then kind of developed into an all-purpose. So like you mentioned, I wanted something that was sweet on the front end, but kind of gave you that heat on the back end, and kind of surprise you. And so it has all those flavors that you mentioned, but it's got not only paprika, but it's got cayenne pepper and chipotle peppers in there to kind of
Right.
give you the little sweaty twist. And
Yeah.
I sweat so easily, so it's really funny starting to get into seasoning making, and I'm by all means not an expert. I'm just learning as I go. But I can sweat really quickly. And so it's funny, as I was, you do the tongue, the little tongue test that you're talking about. I did this, like, okay, like I'm feeling a little hot, but I'm not sweating. So it's like
Yeah.
for me, it was like a good, like, oh, there's a kick there, but I'm not
Right.
sweating. So that was my barometer of going, I didn't
Yeah.
want this to be a high heat, but just a nice subtle heat.
Well, that's one of the things I've seen about rubs like this one. It can have some punch out of the bottle. It can have more punch than yours does and when it actually goes on the food, it's tamed. The food tames the
That's
heat.
right.
So it's this one. The first 2 or 3 cooks I did with the sweet red dirt, I know I've done several pork butts with it, and
Yeah.
probably pork loin and pork tenderloin. And in my opinion, the heat level there is perfect because it's only I don't want to use the term hint because it's slightly more than a hint.
Yeah.
It's a note of heat
Yeah.
that comes in that rub. And for whatever, I don't know what your ingredients ratios are, but it's got the correct ratio of sugar to where it's not gonna burn and turn black on you
Yeah.
when you're searing.
Yeah.
With that one, it does real well under the high heat of a sear. I was impressed with that. A lot of these rubs will turn black on you; they'll scorch
Yeah.
the minute you put any real heat to it. But this one did not do that, and that was impressive. When you were designing that rub, how many iterations did you go through before you came up with what is in the bottle today?
So that's a good question and a complex answer. So definitely years before, maybe a year and a half of testing before we got into production. But then when you start getting into this business, you will learn, depending on how you do it. You start working with a co-packer, and then you got to turn your recipe in, and then they've got to mass produce it, and you got to get the percentages right. So you've got your ingredient recipe with your kind of measurements, and then they're having to turn it into percentages to make it mass production. So then there's a kind of a back and forth process of with the co-packer and yourself, making sure what you created at home is
Right.
be right. So it took, and I've gone through a few different co-packers, and each time it takes 2 or 3 times to go like back and forth. Finally, like my current co-packer, I was like, he's about an hour and a half away from me. I was like, after the second one where it's like it's close but not quite how I made it, I was like, I'm coming to you, and we're just going to the table and we're making it together. And then he's been just it's been a great partnership for that kind of thing.
Right.
And so we just kind of made it at the table until it's like, that's what I'm looking for. And then he figured out the percentages. So that's kind of a long answer to say definitely a few years in the making. And then when you get into the large co-packing, you can have 2 or 3 rounds to make sure that it's the right percentage for mass production.
Or maybe I should have reworded the question differently. How many recipe variations did you go through before you knew you had what you wanted to send to them?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Let me think. Probably. I mean, there's probably 4 or 5, I guess. Maybe I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. I definitely. I mean, I'm a phone guy, so I keep all my notes on my little notes in my phone. I'll just sit with all my little ingredients and my measurements, and I'll just kind of huge bowl, different bowls, different sizes, and I'll just start doing it. So yeah, definitely maybe 3 or 4, because then what I'll do is I'll go, oh, it tastes right. Through the food taste, I'll cook with it and go, oh, something's not there. That's all. That's my process of, not only I can get it to taste right with a finger test, but then I'll cook with it and I'll go, oh, something feels a little off. Okay, I need to adjust that and do that. So I'll definitely 3 or 4 different versions of doing that and then cooking with it to make sure it actually tastes the way I was hoping. So yeah, 3 or 4 times, and that's probably true in all 3 of them. The sauce is a fun story. Another story when we get to that one.
Right. What's your favorite use for the sweet red dirt?
Pork chops, and chicken. That's kind of our family, and that's more of a family thing because I've got the stage of life I'm in right now with 2 daughters. They just constantly love eating chicken and pork chops. So man, I feel like I've really become a huge fan of I just love sweet red dirt on pork chops. I mean, get a nice thick pork chop. It's just incredible. Just did a pork Wellington this weekend with
I saw that on YouTube.
I was like, this is amazing.
Jeff, how many times have I talked about doing that?
Yes.
I've been threatening to do pork Wellington for 2 years now and never pulled the trigger on it.
Yeah. Well, I haven't done. It was my first time to do it that way. I've not done a beef Wellington. I think you've done a handful of beef Wellington.
I've done beef Wellington, but with the price of pork at the pork loins at $2 a pound, opposed to the $25 a pound for the beef tenderloin, it's a no-brainer.
Yep. And it's
Plus,
really
you can use fruit. I want to do a fruit instead of the traditional duxelle with the mushrooms and whatnot. I'm going to do a fruit compote.
Okay.
Or something, and do the prosciutto. I'll probably stick with the prosciutto, but do something fruity, and then do the puff pastry wrap with the lattice and all that mess. But I saw that on your YouTube channel just this week, and I said, "Dadgummit!" I said, "I knew I should have done this sooner." But I've been sitting on that idea for way too long. We'll have to get it, Jeff. We'll have to get that done.
Yeah,
we'll have to.
That's gonna be on my YouTube channel this Friday. Although I cut the prosciutto and I almost did bacon. Because I just do bacon something different, but I just kept it simple. But I'll tell you, I will say on that recipe, that Dijon mustard. Yeah. I feel like that just brought it together.
Right. It looked delicious. So I'm going to be trying that. All right, let's move on over to the
Dust Bowl.
Is it the Dust Bowl? Yeah, let's do the Dust. Actually, let's do the Dust Bowl. Let's talk about that one. What are the key ingredients in the Dust Bowl besides salt, pepper, and the butter? What else do you have in there?
I knew you asked me that. So I'm gonna so I'll tell you wrong. I'm gonna pull it up on my phone. So obviously, you name things like the salt, pepper, garlic is always going to be the base in all my seasonings.
Right.
The butter powder, but then really it's mainly dehydrate. Well, no, I already mentioned that. Let's see here. It really is the only other ingredient really that I would say makes it a little bit different is I'm just looking on here. Yeah, is a little bit of sugar.
Right. Oh yeah, I did notice.
Yeah, the sugar. I was like looking at it all, processing in my head, going, the combination of sugar and that butter mixture with salt, pepper, garlic, that really kind of makes the blend.
Right. That was actually a unique flavor too. I remember when I tasted that one because that caught me off guard. I didn't expect that to be there. But one of the things I do when I'm like, if I'm making a homemade rub or something, like even with the salt, pepper, garlic rub that I might want to use on beef, I still put just a little bit of sugar in it because that sugar amplifies and promotes a better bark formation on absolutely everything. I try to include a little. If I'm not using sugar, I will spritz with a water that's got some sugar dissolved in it, or apple juice or something like that.
That was definitely the spirit of Dust Bowl because I wanted it to be inclusive of beef, but I think where it shines, again, if I was to relabel it, but I'm not, but it would be a veggie rub. It would be a veggie season. I think it's phenomenal on veggies.
Well, I have seasoned baked potato with it already, and I haven't done green beans or asparagus with it yet, but it would be, yes. And I can't think of anything, Scott, that won't work on because it's close enough to an all-purpose rub that you could put it. There's nothing I wouldn't say not to put it on.
That's right.
And your comments about putting it on, I think your website, maybe somewhere in the description talked about putting it on popcorn.
Yeah, my girls and I love it on popcorn.
Yeah,
a mixed drink if you wanted to
rim the glass with it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So it's definitely versatile. I've done briskets with it. with actually, I'll do all three of my seasonings with brisket just because how big it is.
Jeff, have you ever had a rub with the butter powder in it?
No.
Nope. I think I've only had one besides Scott's, and I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was something that Lane's had put out. I don't remember what it
Wait,
was right
not
off.
that you said that. Come to think of it, yeah, I think Lane's had. Which one was it?
I don't remember what it was called, but it's been so long.
I'll
Yeah,
also make a butter compound, for your
Mhm.
steaks with it. Put the
right.
seasoning with that. That really amplifies your
But
compound butter.
it would, and this is excellent. I would have no problem shaking that all over a steak.
Yeah,
None whatsoever.
it's definitely
it's
delicious steak.
It's a delicious, and I think you've hit the nail on the head with veggies. It's going to do well on chicken.
Yeah. Or
It's
Steak
going to do
Supreme,
well
John.
on fish. It's what?
Steak Supreme.
That's not the one I had. Now that I think about it, it was a collaboration he did with somebody else. I can't remember the guy's name. Anyway, that's beside the point. But it was the first time I had it. But Scott's is better than the one I had prior to this, and I think it's well worth a try. And guys, that graphic that I brought up earlier with the picture of his rubs and the website and the discount code, I will post that either tonight or tomorrow on the Man Cave Meals Facebook page where you can see that. I definitely recommend trying these if you haven't had the chance to do so already.
Thank you.
The AP, the all y'all, is that what it's called?
Yeah, all y'all, salt, pepper, and garlic, kind of that southern hospitality, that little southern hug,
And
that's kind of the spirit of all y'all. It's
really what needs to be in the shaker on the table.
That's right. We designed it to be that exact purpose. Change out your salt, pepper for this. It's the fourth ingredient is celery seed, but outside of that, there's nothing else. No sugar, just.
Well, I'm gonna get on you about something here.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
I don't have a good answer, but
what do you have against MSG?
I don't have anything against MSG. Actually, I did a video that on YouTube. Are you an MSG fan by chance?
I am, absolutely.
Yeah, I have MSG in my pantry. I did a whole steak video on it because I needed to research it myself because of all the myths out there. And
does your audience not approve?
No, everyone. I mean, there's definitely some haters out there, but it's a lot of unwarranted research.
It's all unwarranted.
Yeah,
it's hard to convince people of that after they've heard otherwise for so long.
But the reason why you don't find it in my seasoning, that's just simply because culturally, I just would not win.
Right.
I might do maybe one down the road just with one seasoning, but and be clear about it on that label. But it just culturally right now,
I know a lot of people that won't eat it.
Yeah,
and they'll tell you their nightmare stories about their allergies to MSG.
Exactly.
I guess I can understand that, but when I mix my own rubs here at the house, it goes in there. It's and I'm learning to use it more effectively, and I'm learning what the right amounts need to be for different things. But
isn't it more like a half teaspoon per like 5 pounds or something? I can't remember.
No, it needs to be more than that. Actually, in fact, I've seen some rubs, and I've got a couple over here that have MSG is listed as either the first or the second ingredient in the ingredients list, which means it doesn't mean that it's more than half. It just means that it's the single largest ingredient by weight in the blend. So it all depends on what your objective is with it. I don't like to have enough in mind where it tastes like MSG. MSG has a flavor, but the MSG needs to be something that you can tell when it's not there, not that when it is there. It's an umami item, and MSG has an aroma and a taste that you can smell when you've got too much of it. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of the Chinese food I eat's got too much in it because I can smell it
Yeah.
and taste it at the same time. But it's better with it than without, in my opinion. But I just like to ask that question because I know a lot of people. Some people use it and some don't.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I just don't have them in my seasonings or sauce.
Right. Well, in the marketing sense, you're probably better off not having it because it's going to close the doors to some people,
Yeah.
and that it wouldn't close otherwise.
Yep. Absolutely.
In your bottles, are these like 14-ounce bottles, something like that?
Yeah. So they're 16-ounce bottles, but yeah, they're around like that based on the volume of, depending on the ingredients, between 10 to 12 ounces actually in there, but it's a 16-ounce bottle.
Yeah. So in a bottle that size, you'd have typically in my mixtures, it would have about a teaspoon.
Okay. Yep.
In a bottle that size, typically, unless I wanted to go heavy. I've seen some that, I guess it all depends on the rest, how many other ingredients are in the rub, but a teaspoon in a bottle that size usually does the trick.
Yeah, I did a steak comparison where I did it was like salt, and MSG, salt, no MSG, and then just MSG.
Right.
But man, that salt MSG combo. Oh,
what you can do to sort that out. This is what I did when I was developing some of my personal rubs. Is I would put salt in a bowl, a known amount. I always work with weights. I never work with volume measurements. So that teaspoon's not a completely accurate measurement of what I'd put in there. But I put salt in, and then I put a known amount of MSG in, and swirl it around and get it mixed and do a finger test.
Okay.
And figure out where I keep adding until I have that flavor that I'm looking for, because the MSG amount is more concerned with its ratio to salt than any other ingredient that's in the rub. You don't want to overpower the salt with the MSG, and you can very easily, because MSG has a dominating flavor in small quantities that are nowhere near the salt quantities. But I don't know. It's just,
that's great advice.
Yeah, I can't. I'm I'm probably pissing people off just by talking about MSG, because I know I met with a lot of resistance when I put my rubs out. When I gave the rub recipes I had to Atlanta Grill Company when they made those, because those have MSG in them. But that was before I learned really what my quantities needed to be, and the ratio of MSG in those is so small that it really shouldn't even be in there. There's not enough in there to really make a big difference. But it's just something I love.
Yeah.
So
good question. Does your website have samples for sale? Okay, let me answer that. Twofold way of answering that. The current picture that John showed, those are our brand new labels, and we just ordered a new batch. With those labels come out in March with that product. When you go to our current website, it's the same logo, just slightly different label, but it's the same flavor, same ingredients. So I just want to make a mention of that. We right now have I think it's a 7-ounce bottle. So we have 2 different size bottles, but we're discontinuing the 7-ounce bottles after this, once they sell out. So I would consider, to answer your question, I would consider my small 7-ounce bottles of the 3 seasonings on the website as sample bottles, because we're going to discontinue those, but they're the same great flavor.
So it's new labels, same rubs.
That's right. Same flavor, just updating the branding. Okay. We're trying to work hard to get ourselves out there further. And so just kind of doing a little refresh on it.
So the next question I want to ask you is, let me figure out what's the best way to ask this question. What's the most difficult part of getting into the business of selling rubs commercially? What was the biggest challenge you faced doing this?
Yeah, man, this is great. I'll tell you what my current challenge is harder because I feel like it's the challenge right now. And I actually think getting a recipe and getting it manufactured is the easy part. The hard part is marketing and getting and differentiating yourself because there's thousands of seasonings out
Right.
there.
Yep.
I mean, thousands. And so that is my current challenge. And I would say anyone that's interested in doing it is you really, and this is some of the work that we just started this fall. We should have done it when we first started, but you don't know what you don't know when you start doing this. Because I will say this, I didn't start doing this. I didn't start barbecue knowing I was going to turn this into a business. It all started as a hobby and a creative outlet. So I didn't really start it with a business plan. It just kind of happened. So now that I'm kind of going backwards where I'm like, I'm putting more business minded thinking to this business. So the hardest part is right now is just scaling and differentiating yourself between others. And then also just the cash flow in and and cash flow out going into product and inventory. So where it's like I could totally relate to Shark Tank and you watching some of those episodes about you make this much money and you got this much inventory and
Yeah.
and so that's my current challenge is I'm really focusing a lot on brand identity and understanding what's my why, what's different about our seasonings, and how do we tell that story in a
Right.
way that is authentic and it kind of breaks through. And we're still learning that. We're not. I think we're getting clear on our brand identity, being Oklahoma inspired and Oklahoma inspired flavors and premium ingredients. And then we are community and hospitality driven. Like we're going to
Right.
bring that Southern Midwest charm in our customer service. And then we're community minded as our last kind of brand identity is being a pastor. 10% of our sales we are setting aside to every month to give away to different organizations that have need to meet different needs around food insecurity or things that matter to us, like breast cancer awareness, because my wife's fighting that. So we just try to find some organizations that kind of align with our heart. So that's kind of our brand identity, or learning to how do we tell that story. That's
Right.
this rebranding. So that's kind of like a long story answer there, but that's kind of the challenge right now. I actually think creating it from my back, my kitchen, and if you have some money and you can find some co-packers, you don't even have to have a co-packer depending on your state. You can sell it yourself depending on your state guidelines. But
Right.
so I think that part's the easy part. Obviously, everyone's going to say they have the best seasoning, but they're
Yeah. Of
all
course.
have a lot of the same ingredients. So it's just a
Right.
matter of, I think it's more about, to me, it's more about branding and
Right.
how you break through and how well are you known and what's your niche and how you kind of get yourself out there. That's my current 2 cents and challenge.
Well, I haven't been in the barbecue hobby forever, but I've been in it long enough now that I've seen a lot of the rub industry has exploded since I got into barbecue. When I first got into this, there weren't anywhere near the number of rubs out there and sauces that there are now. A Blues Hog, in terms of the sauces, was around,
Yep.
but that was the one that everybody on the competition circuit was using. But they all had their own add-ins and twists that they would use that as a base for. There were
Yep.
only 2 or 3 or 4 commercial rubs at the time, and in fact, one of them, your sauces made me think about this one. It was some sort of cherry rub that I can't even remember the name of it now. You don't by any chance remember that, do you?
Let's see, a cherry rub
From way back.
that wouldn't be the guy in Kansas City, would it?
I don't know where he was from.
There's a company that has a few cherry sauces, Womp sauce, but that's a sauce.
This was way before Mitch, way before his stuff.
That's who I was thinking of.
I can't think of it at the moment either, but there was this Yardbird, the stuff called Yardbird.
Oh yeah,
it was out about the same time, and it was one of the popular ones.
Yeah, that's some of my go-to in the early days.
I can't remember the other one, but there were some boutique rubs starting to come around at the time, but some of these boutique rubs that were coming around shortly thereafter, I'm seeing those in Walmart and Academy Sports now. They've really hit big. You've got people like Matt Pittman at Meat Church and Malcolm Reed, and what's the Australian girl's name?
Oh yeah, Jess Pryles. And
yes, her stuff.
Hey Girl Hey, which is awesome stuff.
Right, and what's that guy that hangs out with Malcolm Reed? His other buddy that makes rubs and sauces. Heath Riles.
Yeah, Heath Riles. Yep, good stuff.
I see all those on the shelf when I go to Walmart anymore. So I guess that's where we need. That's the end game for Bartlow's Barbecue. But where are you marketing now? Or I know you can buy from your website. Do you have any local or any of your local places?
What about in like 7 to 10 places locally? Mom and pop stores, certain farmers markets and butchers stands. We're working on, but nothing done deal. We're trying to get in some local grocery stores right now. I'm trying to work Ace as hard as I can. But we've got a big list of barbecue supply stores we're going to start pitching this year. But we're staying away from Amazon for now. But
Amazon grabs a pretty big cut of your sale, don't they?
They do, and we're just not to a place where our volume's enough where that's worth it yet,
Right.
The thing about Amazon, the competitive advantage is the free shipping, where we're having to pass on our shipping costs, which kind of stinks. But
right.
So it can get kind of expensive when you buy a $12 bottle and then you got to spend $10 for it to ship, depending on when you're at. Maybe cheaper.
Absolutely. Yep. Let's see. Jeff, what kind of questions do you have?
Well, I've watched Scott for several years now, when he first really kind of made the scene. And I'm real happy with what you've done. I mean, I don't really have any questions for you. I mean, everything that you've done has been phenomenal. Hats off to you.
Thank you.
And also, before I forget about it, you guys that are watching, Scott's a Kamado Joe ambassador also. So keep up. He's doing a lot of stuff with the Kamado Joe product line. So
it's been fun. I mean, you two have been like those distant mentors, and I think everybody needs those. Because we don't live close, but like I DM these guys and other guys in the Kamado Joe Nation channel when I run into something on my Kamado or a recipe idea. And so I just kudos to both of you, because I consider you guys OGs, and
I'm old and retired.
OGs, old guys.
Yes, man.
Yeah.
You guys have some of the best. Like John, I know you have incredible recipe document that just is a gold mine.
My Word document, my man cave cookbook.
Yep, and your cookbook. So
I post screen captures out of that on my channel here every now and then.
Yep, you should, man. It's awesome stuff.
I'm never going to publish a cookbook, so
I've got one coming out.
I know about that, and that's something else we'll talk about. Maybe when that comes out, we can have you. Is that available for order yet?
Pre-sale February 24th.
Will that be through Amazon?
No, it's a company that does print on demand. It's kind of cool. They kind of take social media influencers of different sizes, doesn't matter what size you are. And if you have recipes and pictures, they turn it into a cookbook. So it's kind of like a self-publishing, but they give you templates to use, but they do all the heavy lifting after you do the heavy lifting of creating the recipes and snap quality photos. Then they kind of make it pretty. So you're kind of limited on the certain styles, but you can kind of customize it. So it's kind of the best way to, as a content creator, to be honest, it was kind of a no-brainer for me because it was like no cost to me to make it. They get a cut per sell, but then it allows you to kind of put yourself out there.
Right.
So I encourage you, like if you decide, I want to do it, like you could turn your recipes into a pretty cool book, man.
I probably could, but I don't know, man. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is.
I'm old enough now and far enough past my prime and the influencer market that I'm probably not interested in doing a cookbook at this point. But I've toyed with that idea many times.
I gotta go get my cane.
When I sit down and think about the work that's involved in putting that together, I just say, nah. I admire all these younger folks who have time to do that, or have not time. I've got time. Yeah. I've got plenty of time these days. It's just the willpower. Maybe
it's hard to turn off my brain. My wife's like, I love taking naps. Now she's also kind of sick in a season of being a little sick, but she's like, I take naps and you're just constantly working on something. I just can't turn it off.
Now, my wife she'll let me bring Tanya back in here on that comment because we know about that around here, don't we, Tanya?
Oh, yes, we do.
Tanya naps. I don't nap. Tanya can tell you this. I do not nap. I am constantly doing something. My problem is if I nap, I'm not going to sleep at night, and I need to sleep at night. So she and I have that difference.
And see, here's the thing. John usually gets more hours of sleep than I do at night.
Yes.
So I'm trying to make up for the hours that I miss.
That's funny.
Doing the nap. And
well, I don't nap and I don't sleep.
And I would love to nap every day. Don't get me wrong. I would love to nap every day, but I don't. But usually I try to get a nap in on Friday and on Saturday and on Sunday.
Tanya gets up earlier than I do. I always am able to sleep later than she does because she has a long commute to work, and I'm at home during the day, during the week. And cats.
You know what my definition of a good night's sleep is?
What is that?
4.5 hours.
No, that's me on the weekends. That's what I get during my work shift weekends. I'll sleep between 8 a.m. and noon or 1. I get 4 to 5 hours of sleep 3 nights in a row across the weekend. So,
that's awesome. I definitely sleep a lot longer than that, but I also get disrupted in the season with kids too. It's like, they sleep.
Well, before I forget about it, I haven't talked about your sauce yet.
Oh yeah, Heartland.
I don't want to forget about the sauce because this is a cherry sauce.
Yes.
And when you open this bottle, that is the first thing that hits my nose is the cherry. There's Brewster's talking about it. I guess Brewster, have you had that already?
Yes. He's one of my ambassadors. He's awesome. I love Brewster.
Yeah, he's that sauce, that cherry aroma hits you as soon as you open the bottle, and it's also the first thing that hits my palate. But once again, much like the sweet red dirt, there's this little guy standing in the back corner back there waiting, and he after you're just getting the sugar drunk off of that beautiful cherry sweetness, he peeks his head out and says,
"Hey, I'm here."
There's a little bit of back end heat on that's just fantastic.
That's also hickory smoked too.
Yes, and that's definitely in the aroma. But one of the things I've done with that sauce, besides use it as a typical sauce, is I thinned some of it out with a little bit of vinegar and a little bit of bourbon and made a wonderful glaze out of it. So,
love that. Love that.
Yeah, so any kind of barbecue sauce, especially a great sweet sauce, makes a fantastic glaze if you thin it just a tad. Yep. And Scott, do this if you get a chance. Take a pork tenderloin,
okay,
or a couple. Get a half sheet pan,
okay,
and set it out somewhere by your grill, and take, I don't know, if you're going to cook one or two, if you're going to do two pork tenderloins, put about three quarters of a cup of that sauce and a quarter of a cup of bourbon and 2 or 3 tablespoons of vinegar. Mix that up and just dump it out on that sheet pan and put your pork tenderloin down over direct heat, over direct flame. And every 30 seconds or so, take it out, roll it around on that sheet pan in that glaze, and then throw it back down over the fire, and just keep doing that until you've got this fantastic sear and a little bit of char on that. And you're going to have this flavor layer on the outside of that that's going to blow you away. It's going to have it. That sauce is going to tack up from the heat.
I think I'm going to do that this weekend.
It makes a fantastic glaze on anything on and off of direct heat. And that, I haven't tried that on chicken yet, but I think that would make a good chicken. It would be good on chicken also.
We baste it in chicken all the time. I haven't done that little ingredient twist, but we definitely baste in chicken and pork chops all the time.
Right. But it's got a sweetness. I love sweet sauces, and I live in Western North Carolina, and most people don't know that there is a Western North Carolina style barbecue sauce, which the Eastern Carolina sauces are the vinegar-based sauces. Yep. The Western North Carolina sauces are kind of something that's in between the vinegar-based sauce and the Kansas City sweet sauces. Yep. It's a sweet sauce that's got a tangy side to it, and
sweet and tangy. That's that's my favorite.
Those are kind of my favorite sauces. Tanya and I both like this Western North Carolina style, and I like the upstate South Carolina mustard sauces as well. I'm a sucker for that mustard brown sugar flavor.
So we're trying to work on a second sauce that's going to be vinegar based on, like, mainly vinegar, like very liquidy, very Carolina traditional. Mm-hmm. And it's got a little kick to it, but I've done it on marinades and basting pork butts, and it turns out awesome. Mm-hmm. Still working on it to decide if that's the right way to go. But that's a second sauce idea we're working on, kind of like a mop sauce, vinegar sauce.
And they make a great mop sauce because it's runny, it's watery. Yep. It doesn't have any kind of thickness to it like a typical sauce does, and that's the essence of Eastern Carolina sauces. They're mostly vinegar, and the hardcore. I don't know what the word I'm looking for here. Just the hardcore people from Eastern North Carolina, when it comes to sauces, in that Eastern Carolina sauce, there is no form of tomato in it. Okay. That's the hardcore people. Now my version of it's got some tomato sauce in it, or some even ketchup. Ketchup's a good something to put in there, but it's all vinegar and red pepper flake. Yep. And some various other ingredients, which often include a little bit of sugar. You've got to have something to cut back the acidity of the vinegar. But the people who make those sauces at these famous barbecue places in Eastern North Carolina, they're not going to tell you what's in it. That's right. They'll sell you a bottle of it, but they won't tell you. Yeah. So I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the Eastern Carolina style sauce. I don't like it. Yeah. I don't like Eastern Carolina style barbecue either. It's all whole hog. And they have this motto down there, from the rooter to the tooter. It doesn't matter what part of the pig it is. It's all chopped up and mixed together. They don't celebrate any single part of the animal down there. It's all whole hog. And that's just not my jam. But it's a culture down there. Yeah. It's Eastern North Carolina also, Scott. I don't know if you're aware of this. Huge hog farms down there. Okay. Smithfield's primary stuff is in Eastern North Carolina.
Okay, I don't know if I realized that.
Yeah, so there's hog farming. Hog farming's huge in Eastern North Carolina. And Smithfield, unfortunately, now is owned by some other Chinese company, but their primary raising grounds are here in North Carolina. So there's a legitimate claim to pork barbecue here in North Carolina simply because they raise a lot of hogs here. But you're not far from a lot of hog farming and a lot of cattle farming.
Yeah, that's very true.
So, yeah. And do you have a local heritage breed pork that you like close to you?
I have not. I've been I have not found one yet outside of the ones that are like nationwide that is well known.
Yeah.
And I'm trying out different Oklahoma based ranchers right now. I've gone through probably 3 or 4. A few of them are friends, and a lot of them are really, really good. But I haven't found one that I'm just going, to die for. So I'm continuing. I'll take any recommendations. But there's definitely a lot of great ranchers here in Oklahoma, but I've not found one that kind of meets just that we want to keep on buying from.
Right. I don't know other than I've done business with Porter Road, and I've done business with Heritage Farms here in North Carolina, or Cheshire. I guess it's called Heritage Farms, Tanya.
Yeah, it is.
They call it Cheshire pork. They mail order also, but it's always better if you can find somebody local because shipping this meat, it gets pricey.
Yes,
and I fortunately have a local butcher that raises their beef and pork locally. Their pork is fantastic. Their awesome. Their beef, I can only call it good because it's all grass-fed beef, and that's not my jam either.
Yeah,
I'm not putting down grass-fed beef. I'm just saying I prefer grain-fed or grain-finished beef myself.
Yep.
So, but their pork is off the hook. I don't know what kind of breeds they have, but I bought a pork butt up there a while back. I think I paid $5 or $6 a pound for it. But it was probably the best pork butt I've ever had.
Oh, that's
and when you look at this meat, you know something's different because it's a deep, dark red.
Yeah.
You won't be used to seeing pork that dark in color. And it's just fantastic. In fact, I probably should get another one. And that's when I cook that pork here, that pork doesn't get given away. That's mine. That's the pitmaster's stash.
That's right
there. I don't share that with friends and family.
That's awesome.
So, Tanya, do we have any questions that we need to look at?
No, I've been watching them very closely.
Okay.
But Carolina Blue Yeti.
All right.
Well, I'll tell Tanya if she wants to buy a Yeti, I'm okay with that. I've got enough Yeti.
Yeah.
I've got 2 or 3 Yeti coolers, and I'm not buying any more.
Yeah, and I have my Yeti, so. But
Tanya's got one of the Yeti M. I can't remember what they call that. That it's one of the shoulder bag large coolers. It's really nice. It's the one they had a recall on that we had to send ours back, and then we had to wait 8 months before another one came out.
Yeah, because originally I had gotten an orange one because Gerben had gotten the orange, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's such a great shade. So in honor of Gerben, I got the orange one, and then they recalled them. And they really didn't have a whole lot of great.
Man, I'm telling you, those Yetis are awesome. I traveled with Kamado Joe in the spring to Seattle and was talking to Chef Eric. I've never done this before, like he does. Like if you get a chance to follow Chef Eric, he's worth a follow. He's a true chef. One that I wish I got to keep on raising the bar. He raises it so high. But he was teaching me like how to use a Yeti whenever you're doing these events, and you got a short window when you're traveling to get there, and the food needs to be cooked, especially if you're like doing a pork butt or something like that. And so we are having to travel with like cooked pork butts, and then saran wrap it, throw it in, there, or a frozen strip loin roast, uncooked, and travel with it, frozen. And I was so nervous my first time while doing that. with a group of people, I'm like, I really hope this goes well. And traveling with frozen food or cooked food, but those Yetis, man, they did awesome. They
do. They're fantastic. There's when Yeti first came out, they were unique in the marketplace. Nobody else was making anything like it. But now there's a lot of coolers out there that are equal to Yeti in terms of quality, durability, and functionality that are somewhat less expensive. I was what Tanya and I we road tripped up to Ohio back in December up to Columbus, and I don't have a Yeti. My Yeti doesn't fit nicely in the back of my car like I'd like it to. I need something slightly smaller than what I have for road tripping. And I've got one of these.
Don't. Oh, Jesus, Meryl.
I've got one of these.
She's fighting me. She wants me to pet her, but she wants to rub up against
I'm going to minimize you down for a minute, okay? I put one of these Coleman, or I can't remember if it's a Coleman or an Igloo. It's a cooler. It's like a 35 or 40 quart cooler that I paid $30 for. I use it for resting meat because I've ruined one Yeti cooler resting pork butts in it. And this one, I put 2 bags of convenience store ice in it. It's like 2 8-pound bags of ice in it on a Thursday morning. And actually, it was on a Wednesday night. I loaded it up with ice on a Wednesday night before we left on Thursday morning, and I still had ice in that cooler on Sunday when I got home.
Wow!
In a $25 cooler. Now, granted, I wasn't opening it all day every day, but I still had some ice left in it. So that makes me remember that you don't have to have a $500 cooler all the time. But I've got Yeti. I've got the Yeti Hall it's the 50 quart cooler that's got the handle and the wheels on it. That one will fit behind the back seat of my car, but nothing else will go back there with that in there.
Oh, speaking of that, I've been meaning to ask you: have you tried a food warmer yet, or have one?
No. You're talking about something like a
Cambro? Yeah, or a Cambro. Well, like an actual electric food warmer, like kind of a residential version that can get down to like 145, 150 and do long holds.
No, if I haven't got one. I haven't seen that. Have you got something you're using?
Yeah, I just got it last summer as I started getting into I'm talking about getting into catering for maybe just a few hundred people. And I was like, I need something more than just my cooler or having to have multiple coolers. And those still work. But I got a few of the guys I'm connected to that are in catering were like, you need to try a Bever. I think it's Bever. I don't know how you say it, but
Vevor. Yeah. Okay.
Bever.
Yeah.
Food warmer. And so I just got one to start with. I kind of want to get a second one so that I can kind of expand.
So it's powered. It's electric.
Mm-hmm. And it's got like
set the temperature on it.
I've been able to get like 1 brisket and like 5 pork butts in there in the one version I got.
And it'll hold at 150.
Hold at 150. And I did a 16. Well, I did a 16-hour hold. I tested out. No, 16 hours was my longest.
Yeah.
And just based on I was experimenting with the timing for work and for this event. That was probably too long for my brisket, but still fine for the pork butt. So I'm learning what's the length of time, but it holds it so it keeps that temperature. You're not having to worry about having the thermometer in there with the cooler and all the towels.
Well, the trick to the brisket's pulling it off early if you're going to hold it that long.
Yep.
You want to hold that brisket at 150 for 16 hours. Just pull it off at about 180, and you'll be golden.
I pulled it off at 195, and I think that was my mistake. That was my mistake. It was wonderful, but it ended up being chopped brisket. At least the flat did. The point was fine, but the flat was like pretty much chopped brisket.
Did it fall apart?
It did. I mean, I got some good slices from it, but it was definitely at that point like I should.
I like chopped brisket.
No, it was good. I mean, I still cater.
I'll eat it.
People loved it. People loved it. The flavor was great. But you're right. I think pulling it off at, you said like 180, 185, and then let it do a long hold, then you're there.
Well, here's one thing I know for a fact because I've done it. If you run a smoker at 185 or 190 with a brisket in it for 24 hours, that brisket's good to go at 24 hours.
Yeah.
Pork butt's the same way. You don't have to get that pork butt to 200 degrees because time is a factor in the cook as well as temperature.
That's right.
That lower temperature, the longer time, it's still going to be fall apart. So, and I learned that trick from Matt Pittman. Matt did a video. I think it was a brisket. He did a 24-hour brisket cook like that, but he did his slightly different. I don't remember exactly what he did, but when I saw it, I said, I can just run it at 190 for the 24 hours and it'll be fine. And it was. I made a video on that a long time ago.
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, but pork butt's far more forgiving than brisket.
Yeah.
If it weren't for the brisket flat, everything would be fine. The point, the flat's the part that kills you. Yeah, the point's just as forgiving as a pork butt.
Yeah,
it's got the fat content you need, but that flat's not gonna put up with a whole lot.
Yep. Man, you got me thinking about pulling it. If I'm going to do a long hold, you got me thinking about going even sooner than 195. You're saying 185 might be a good one.
Yep. Or maybe even sooner. That's something you'd want to test. That might be a good call for a sacrificial brisket to learn where that point is.
Yeah, get myself a choice and just go for it.
Well, we've exceeded our hour here, and I know we all need to run. Scott, I appreciate you coming on with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's always fun to talk about this. And Jeff and I, we're going to talk about we're going to do a series, and we're going to probably do it once a month, where each one of us will evaluate a sauce and a rub as one of our monthly, once a month live streams here, and we're going to include yours in that loop when the time comes. So we'll do an on-screen taste testing and recommendations and all that, and we'll do it on Bartlow's barbecue stuff as well. So
thank you.
That's perfect. Jeff, do you have anything else?
Nope.
Tanya, have we got anything we need to see before we wrap it up?
No, but Tar Heel says that it was great to see you, Scott.
Yep. Tar Heel's one of my regular YouTubers.
Love it.
On here every Thursday. And guys, once again, I apologize for whatever I did wrong in scheduling this live stream. I probably forgot to change the start time on it when I set it up this morning, and it was probably scheduled for 9:00 this morning or something, and I just didn't catch it. So, but I'm glad that the ones of you that did show up, I appreciate it. All right, so we'll see you once again next week. Thanks for joining us.